Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey everybody, happy Easter Eve on this Saturday afternoon. Exciting times, I think. First off, the weather's looking better and better, at least where I live, which is going to be good. And thank you all who said all those kind words about Wally. The little guy was running around here a few minutes ago, and I just couldn't get it together, and he lost interest and skedaddled. But anyway, that's why I posted a picture, because you guys were all so kind. Love the kitty cats. That's a wonderful thing. And who doesn't love God's creations, especially at this time of year? Hey, the Ministry of Interior announces the registration of more than 36 million citizens in the national card system and its adoption in the election. So they're doing many things, but they're gearing for elections in the future, but they're also gearing to pay people, I think, for the hydrocarbon law. I'm hoping that's the case, because they're talking about, as you'll see in the end, about funding salaries. And so we're wondering where that funding is. And they've obviously said that they want to start the oil in the Kurdistan region. So all of that is going to be centered around an exchange rate of some sort. And the question is that, well, if they were going to do it at 1310, why didn't they have all this stuff done 2 years ago or a year ago? So we're going to have to figure that out. But anyway, we just give you what Iraq in the news is sending us, and we decipher the best that we can what we believe to be the analysis that supports or indicators that something's happening. This particular article is the Interior Minister Abdul Amir Shamari announced on Saturday the registration of those 36 million Iraqi citizens. Now, look, 36 million citizens, Iraq has about 43.5 million people. So they've got a saturation level that's probably about 85%, give or take. It's not exact, but that's approximate. It says he's confirmed, oh, wait a second. Interesting point here, this is funny. The minister also noted that this period is the first stage of this life of the project, and today it was announced the registration of 36,751,362 citizens in the national card system, stressing that this data is divided by gender, religion, birth, marital status, pastoralism, housing, life variables, and all these natural qualities such as personality and registration ratios in all governance. Now, I have to laugh because how do you define someone's personality on a card? Jovial, smart, stern, narcissistic, malignant, narcissistic. I mean, how do you describe that? That could be a whole page full of things. But anyway, I thought that was funny. So I'll move on. Being light. Says Shamari announced the start of the second phase of the National Card Project, which is represented in its implementation of the Iraq embassies in coordination with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the activation of the middle system. I'm not sure what middle system is, but which will have an effective effect in verifying the validity of information, data, and linking it between the main data center at the Ministry of Interior and the rest of the ministries, which will achieve a new methodology in the speed of giving information. One of the key things I want to point out here is that the Ministry of Interior continues by saying the process of producing the national card will be in Baghdad with high technology and quality, as well as setting the basic steps in the production of electronic passports in all categories in the card factory and electronic passport, pointing to the automation of housing information through the national card. So that tells you where everybody lives, if everybody has that on their card. So not only they can get down to their personality, they can get down to where do you live in these cards. 36 million people. That makes me think that I think they're further along in this census than we thought. The hydrocarbon law is supposed to have a census. Maybe they've been quite hush-hush about this national card in that respect, but I have to say that it's important because they have automation of housing information through the national card. One thing they do say is that these cards may go a long way come April 1st, and that is a quote, "He confirms the issuance of the statement related to the suspension of dealing with paper documents," so they're done with paper. It says a civil status identity and an Iraq nationality certificate, that's the name of it, as a first stage inside Iraq as of the first day of April 2024. That's not far off, folks. That's where they're going to have a huge amount of data all ready to go. Automation of housing information through the national card is part of that. All the other issues I mentioned are a part of that. My view is if they have that much information and they're gearing towards paying a segment of their population their rights. What is their rights? Their constitutional rights? Okay, hydrocarbon law is related to constitutional rights. Salaries are effectively constitutional rights. Voting is a constitutional right. So ultimately, that's a big article, and enjoy it. It's in Patreon with patreon.com/MM and crew, and everybody's welcome. And thank you for all you newcomers. It's fascinating to see our place grow. Kurdistan retirees scramble with tremendous human momentum today in front of banks to receive their salaries. So this is today. It says the Ministry of Finance and Economy of the Kurdistan region announced that salary scale of employees for the month of February. It says that the distribution of salaries will begin starting on Saturday, which is today. So I haven't seen anything more on it, but we'll find out. Where the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Interior, retirees, social affairs, and people with special needs will be the first to receive the salary. The Kurdistan Regional Government announced on this past Wednesday the distribution of employee salaries for the month of February and the readiness to secure the salaries of the coming months. I'm going to get into another article that just came out a little bit ago, and I think it was within the last hour or so, or this afternoon. But bottom line is, I'm interested in the outcome of the distribution of what they're talking about, and hopefully the news will show us that there's more to the story from today. The news agency opens the files of installing lectures, the exchange rate, and the automation 2024 budget. So they talked about the automation of the housing data, right? And then now they're talking about automation for the 2024 budget, which is, I like buzzwords, and it's easy to pick those things up and try to correlate them and see if they have anything to do with each other. Just like sustainable development road project, all those little buzzwords that they use, integration, yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, here it says in Baghdad, an accelerated movement led by the Parliamentary Finance Committee in order to find objective solutions to many of the problems facing the economy and money in Iraq by pushing the government's programs for implementation in the light of challenges imposed by the oil markets, which constitute an important criterion in determining the volume of money flowing to the country's treasury, not to mention the rights of multiple segments awaiting a resolution in the 2024 budget. Like I said, HCL, the rights of multiple segments awaiting resolution in the 2024 budget. When's the 2024 budget supposed to arrive? Next week. Tomorrow is the first day of next week. I got an article here that talks about Taif Sami that's going to kind of maybe open your eyes. Not saying that's the date, just letting you know what we read is the news. And there's a remarkable, so what they did here today, which is good, and I like this article, is because it's a news agency. They interview a man by the name of Mudar Al-Karawi. He's a member of the Parliamentary Finance Committee to find out some of the most prominent developments in the economic files in the country and challenges during 2024. So he goes on, there's a question, when will the 24 budget schedules reach Parliament? And he says they're expected next week, which could very well be tomorrow. But it's too early to talk about the provisions in detail. He says that the Ministry of Finance is awaiting approval of the schedules in order to launch financing for all government projects according to their instructions. So they're looking to fund or launch financing for all government projects. The next question, there's more, but I got a few that I'll just go over. Where has the automation file reached in the institutions? He's talking about the state government, etc. And we've already mentioned a couple of those things. So this is right in line with what the theme of today's news is. He says that there's remarkable progress in applying automation, especially in the tax and customs departments. Well, we all know that the IQD system is fully ready to go and dialed in. It's a global initiative that's prepared. And I'm just saying that when they talk about this, especially in the tax and customs departments, because that's going to reflect significant amount of income through their non-oil revenue stream. They want to get away from oil, and now they are basically talking about that. And not to mention the rest of the other services, they say, because it's a path that will reduce the routines of administrative procedures, less paperwork, and close 50% of the doors to corruption. So they're going to make it fast, furious, close the doors of corruption. So could you imagine that they were grafting 50% of the taxes and tariffs at the borders? 50%? Okay, so in addition to being an effort to develop non-oil revenues for the Iraqi treasury. So all of that is basically for what? To develop non-oil revenues for the Iraqi treasury. And these guys were all over it. The next question was, will the exchange rate in the parallel market witness a greater decline in 2024? Frankly, I don't really care about the 2024, the parallel market. I don't personally believe, you guys may, but I don't personally believe the parallel market is going to have any effect on in the future. They've already reduced it down to like $25 million a day. And they've already told us that they were doing 200 million plus with legitimate platform use for merchants and imports and international trade. So anyway, this gentleman says, the central bank and financial measures contributed to stopping the fever of the exchange rate rise in the parallel market and even controlling it at high rates, and the gradual decline that occurred, even if it was slow over the last 5 months, but it was the beginning of pushing it to be close to the exchange rate specified by the Central Bank of Iraq. But at the end of the day, what do they say? The decline will continue. My personal feeling is once they change the value of the exchange rate and give it a real effective exchange rate, that market's not going to be what it's ever been before. And that's a good thing for everybody. Another question here is that Iraq is still facing a challenge presented by the dependence. No, I'm sorry. He goes, what is Iraq's 2024 strategy to confront its financial challenges? He goes on to say, Iraq is still facing a challenge represented by the dependence of the sale of oil as a primary resource for its treasury at a rate of about 90% in light of fluctuations that put the economy in a difficult situation from time to time. He goes, therefore, there is a general trend in maximizing, we've heard that before, non-oil treasury revenues and establishing a culture of partnership between the two sectors, both public and private. And they want to crystallize a long series of investments that create job opportunities and provide indicators of activity according to the principle of service in exchange for interest. So they're going to derive money out of it. So that's brilliant. What are the most prominent challenges of the investments in Iraq? He goes to say, for years, the security factor has been the most prominent challenge in the investment and attracting capital. So they didn't have security and stability. But the situation is currently different with stability and control of the security forces. So they've got security and they got stability because that's what they're going to use. And here I said in one of my videos the other day But the marketing factor remains, creating flexibility in procedures, reassuring investors, and diversifying job opportunities are challenges that must be paid attention to. So the marketing factor. So that's what they're doing now. We've already seen the last couple of days. They are talking about marketing. They're selling Iraq's security and stability. Investors, come in. We're protecting you. You're going to see how they're going to massage these things. And some of the talk between Iraq and the United States and the coalition forces about security. But be sure that Iraq has security going to come from, if it is bilateral relationship with the United States and bilateral relationships with 84 other countries, security is going to be a big issue because they've already increased their money and investment money by 35% since last year. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of protection. They're not going to, people have had to have some sort of sense of assurance that when they invested that money, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to be lost. And so that's what they're talking about, and I think it's very powerful. He goes on to say that the necessity of ending any indicators of corruption that are trying to approach the file, so that they're just not going to tolerate it. Investing and seeking to reduce procedures in a way that contributes to attracting more money, especially since internal investment rates increased by 35% in the 16 months. So that is, hey, I think there was an article, I don't know if it was, I think it was probably within the last 4 months. Maybe it's a little bit shorter than that even. It was a pretty powerful article because bottom line was what they say is that be careful on what they say in print about certain political aspects, because what they do in private is completely different. I think what you're going to understand is what I just said is something along those lines. Be careful because the security and stability of the investment for that development road, they're going to need security. They can't have terrorists running down the road, blowing people up, stealing, smuggling, drugs, all that stuff. They're just not going to tolerate that. Not in this day and age. And they have these new systems in place that can track all the goods and services that they're getting paid for, and that graft is going to cease to exist for the corrupt. And a last thing on this particular question was currently a reality, forgive me. Question is Iraq continuing to diversify the currency basket? And they say a current reality imposed by international conditions on the importance of diversifying the basket of currencies in order to secure import needs from multiple origins and not to limit dealing to one or two currencies. We already know that they did that with those correspondent banks. There was the dirham, there was the euro, there's the US dollar. They had all these different correspondent banks using different currencies, so they've already done all that. It says also pushing the Iraqi reserve to the principle of diversification is very important. And it is a context that most countries in the world have begun to adopt in recent years. So Iraq is now doing what many other countries in the world are doing over the last few years, and that's really a good thing. In my view, this is something to this article. Basically, how I put it is the people's rights with the 2024 budget are right out of the gate mentioned as of being part of the important criterion in determining the volume of money flow to the country's treasury, and the rights of the multiple segments awaiting resolution within the 2024 budget. To me, that's powerful. Those rights are to arrive next week. When I say rights, we're talking about for the citizens. Okay, the rights are to arrive next week, will not only benefit the citizens, but will set the stage for the launch of financing for all government projects according to the budget's instructions. We know that there is automated tax system in place via the global IQD system. The system curbs corruption, we know that. It saves time, it increases non-oil revenues, especially for those rights to be placed in the Iraqi treasury. For who? The citizens. With Iraq's central bank taking measures to stop the exchange rate rise in the parallel market shows that they attained a gradual decline in the exchange rate due to merchants gravitating to the new platform in significant numbers, whereby the parallel market decreased to a mere 25 million a day compared to over 200 plus million with the legitimate system. They say that the decline will continue, likely to disappear, in my opinion. Of course, I think that's what it's going to happen. Iraq has had challenges in the past with oil rent-based economy. Now with the new systems in place, there will be an effort to now maximize non-oil revenues that will come from the electronic platforms, in addition to many other things, tourism, agriculture, mining, all that good stuff. The partnerships with the public and private sector will secure many investments that will create what their plan is designed for in creating jobs and activities that support the public. Now that they have had a significant internal investment over the last 16 months that we talked about, they're now marketing to show that the country is resilient and yet flexible in their procedures, reassuring investors, diversifying job opportunities while curbing corruption. Marketing will be showing the public addressing this issue in that the security forces are in control. So their marketing is going to show that they have done all these things, okay? The central bank has allowed for more correspondent banks to be opened in multiple foreign currencies to secure import needs. The diversification of Iraq's reserves is a very important principle they needed to have in place, just as more countries of the world have adopted in recent years. This Q&A has a lot of information, so I would highly suggest that if you haven't read it yet, and if you haven't been into our Patreon, if you're not a member, you know what, at this time, it may be a really good time to know what you own and understand why it's so important to be aware. American warning about the repercussions of Sudanese government visit to Washington and its impact on its allies. I'm pretty sure this one was, it's interesting, okay? The Senator Tom Cotton, along with 7 representatives, sent a letter to our president asking him to set conditions on Iraq, most notably not to make further concessions to Iran and to intervene to resume the export of oil from the Kurdistan region. Well, that I like, because that's what the citizens want. They want their rights, and that oil needs to have an asset valuation so that they can get their rights. They're going to get a check someday because of it. It says that al-Sudani's visit to Washington, that he'll meet with the president on April 15th, 24, and said in a press statement that they will discuss common priorities and strengthen the strong bilateral partnership between the United States and Iraq. He goes on to say that Washington is, Baghdad hopes to develop relations with Washington during this next visit. And while the government set the agenda with the president of the U.S., which is a prominent Iraqi official, said that, quote, it will witness and discuss the post-international coalition phase. So they're obviously talking about the post-coalition phase. We know that security is a main component. We're just going to figure out what they do and how they tell you they're going to have security, because like I said, there's numerous American companies in Iraq that are going to have their hand in that development road project. And so there's going to be some security in place. Be sure of it. Let's see. It goes on to say the representative said that they require, before the visit takes place, so before the visit of Sudani, that the American administration focuses on reducing Iranian influence in Iraq and mobilizing support for partners in Kurdistan, and stressed asking that the prime minister reopen the pipeline between Iraq and Turkey so that Kurdistan region can export oil. Okay, so a requirement before the visit takes place. That right there, if that's what they're telling us, it's a big issue, because they want Sudani to do something before he arrives on the 15th. That's powerful. And think about those salaries that people want. They want their rights. If you're going to flow that oil out of Kurdistan, you're going to have a valuation with an exchange rate for that. That's the only implications I can come up with. And I think I'm not alone, to be fair. It says at the conclusion of the letter, the representative demanded not to allow further transfers in U.S. dollars to Iraq until the Treasury Department confirms that such transfers do not benefit the Iranian regime or its agents. Well, whether I agree with that or not is not my beef. It is theirs. But it says, will not allow further transfers in U.S. dollars to Iraq until the Treasury Department confirms that such transfers do not benefit the Iranian regime or its agents. If anybody's going to be using dollars, those folks that are be selling dollars on the black market, they're going to be selling them on their own. What did al-Sudani specifically tell you? Be careful. Hold your dinar, because why? It's going to be stronger than the dollar. It's unbelievable. I don't know, these guys, I'm pretty sure this has been kicked around so long, but it's actually pretty brilliant as far as I'm concerned. It says here the government's position on the issue of the future of American international coalition forces. They have what? They have retreated from the demand for immediate withdrawal. Oh, so security. So you guys were wanting us to leave immediately, but yet now they have retreated. This is Fawad Hussein who's saying this, by the way. He's in the United States. And what was his message? He's basically telling us that he's been successful. Because there's some interesting issues in this article, be sure. So if you come into Patreon, it's America warning about the repercussions of Soleimani's visit to Washington and its impact on its allies. And my view on it was, or is, there are some interesting issues. Firstly, Fawad Hussein's meeting was apparently successful in nature. That's his words. Secondly, the request for oil to be resumed through the Kurdistan region prior to arrival of al-Sudani is a big deal that has my attention. You can be sure of that. They'll need to have asset valuation on that oil, as it's going to be related to the tripartite budget, just as salaries are, and how they're going to value those assets. That's just what they're going to do. So that's big. Another is there is a retreat from warning or wanting immediate withdrawal of the American international coalition forces. So security is going to be, as we noted earlier, to be high on the list for things to be maintained. And they're going to have international partnerships with the public and the private sectors. So therefore, they are going to need that security. So that's pretty powerful stuff that we have on this Saturday afternoon. It says the Kurdistan retirees support the localization of salaries and call for their equality with the center and the south. So the Kurdistan Retirees Union announced on Saturday its support for setting the salaries of retirees in banks that fall under the supervision of the Central Bank of Iraq and with the agreement from Baghdad and Erbil. He points out that they are in favor of settling these salaries in banks that fall under the supervision of the Central Bank of Iraq and the guarantees of the Iraqi government and in agreement with the governments of Baghdad and Erbil. So he goes in to say that the entity of the region, they demand rights and are putting pressure on the decision makers. So they're not really going after the government, but what they're stating is they just demand their rights, they want their money, and they deserve it. So the retirees are basically putting pressure on the central and regional sides of things to settle the salary issue, which you all can see that's quite open in public. The next one is Erbil and Washington stress the need to respect the identity of the Kurdistan to send those financial rights through the regional government. They're basically stating that the regional government, Masroor Barzani, and the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, Alina Romanowski, stressed the necessity of respecting the entity of the Kurdistan regional government, sending its financial rights through the regional government. The Prime Minister affirms that the Kurdistan region has fulfilled all its constitutional obligations. So if they've fulfilled all those constitutional obligations, let's get those citizens their constitutional rights. And therefore, any violation of its rights stipulated in the Constitution cannot be justified and clearly and unambiguously. It says the meeting stressed the need to respect the federal entity of the Kurdistan region and send its financial rights, there again, financial rights, through the regional government, in addition to discussing the progress of that new My Bank account process that the Kurds have designed. So the American ambassador expresses her full support for resolving these outstanding problems between the Kurds and the federal government through dialogue and under the umbrella of the Constitution. So basically, in my view, get the exchange rate sorted and the people need to be paid, pump the oil out of Kurdistan, and give the citizens their rights. Pretty sure that's the context of what they're talking about. Al-Sudani calls on the political blocs for help with what? Iraq faces challenges and you must unite. The Prime Minister Shia al-Sudani considered ending the American presence to be one of the most important issues, stressing that the government had fixed in its approach the time period for removing those forces. He's pointing out that Iraq is going through major challenges that requires solidarity among all political forces. So basically, this is almost like an internal reconciliation when it comes to requiring solidarity among all political forces. They have a time frame that they're looking to get rid of those forces. Of course, a lot of the politicians don't want America in there. But obviously, again, what I said before, whether they say to us was be careful on what you read and see what they do. Okay, al-Sudani basically speaks in a conference followed by the news. Ending the American presence in Iraq will give us the opportunity to rebuild a different relationship with the American side, noting that this most important files we've been working on are the removal of foreign forces. Fair enough, they may be doing that. When? Probably not immediately, and you're going to see why, or you're going to hear why. He goes on, the challenges facing Iraq require all political blocs to join hands in what serves Iraq and the Iraqis. Great. Pointing out the current government has launched major service and development projects to serve the Iraqi people. So in other words, they're saying is that we've already started something, but we do need security, and you're going to see that they may not be leaving anytime soon, or where immediate comes to play, that's probably not going to happen. He points out the political and security stability will make Iraq an attractive environment for investors from all countries of the world, and stressing that cooperation is the only way to cross towards the shores of security and development. All right, but he goes, look, how about my view on this? It says there is a time frame for removal of the American presence in a different manner, I think. Be sure we will be seeing a security for American and international companies and their foreign interests, because we already have talked about the companies, the Honeywells, the GEs, the HKMs, JP Morgan. There's going to be a lot of American interests in there because they already told you that it's going to be not just it's going to be all kinds of countries of the world. So obviously, we're going to be included in that, and investors are going to require security and stability. So I think they're going to get it, which I'm pretty optimistic and stoked that what we're seeing right now is huge. Like I said, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Honeywell, GE Vernova, JPM, HKN, all those companies, they're going to require security. So the development projects that they're going to have for the citizens, you can't have people blowing up residential buildings and doing crazy stuff when investors are going to be losing money. So obviously security and stability, they're saying that they have that. So here's this last article that I'm going to go for, and it's the government announces the date for approving the budget schedules and confirms the provision of salaries. I'm pretty sure that we have Taif Sami on record, and I didn't have time to get to it, but I'm telling you, I believe that the Council of Ministers have already done and completed the schedules, texts, etc., and they're waiting to be delivered as early as tomorrow to those that need to see it. But they make it sound like on Saturday, the Council of Ministers will soon approve the budget schedules. I think that's false. Confirming that employees' salaries will be secured. Okay, great, but let's see. And that's what they're waiting for. He's indicating that the Council of Ministers will approve the budget schedules within 2 weeks and salaries are fully insured. Okay, they tell you you're going to do it tomorrow, and then they're going to tell you it's going to be in 2 weeks. All right, so you got to be careful, but I bring it out because that's what's in the news. We'll see what they do. It says the Minister of Finance, Taif Sami, will launch funding for the government tomorrow, Sunday. So that's a contradiction right there, okay? What do you think? But explaining that the value of salaries amounts to 69 trillion dinars. Just think about it for a minute, drop the 3 zeros from the exchange rate, and $69 trillion is over half of what they've ever printed. It doesn't make any sense. How do you have a $228 trillion budget when you don't even have that much money? It's funny. Okay, so anyway, I'm glad you guys came here on this Saturday afternoon. Thank you for being with me. And for all those people that haven't done that so far, hit that like button. Please do subscribe. It makes a big difference for me. And if you can help keep the crew running like we do very efficiently, we have PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. So thank you for your support. We really do appreciate it. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.